Good morning, Brad. Thank you so much for joining me for another Zoom interview. I know we don't speak as often as we'd like to, but it's always nice to get someone of your caliber on the video, imparting some of your knowledge. Thanks for having a conversation with me.
Good hundred. Well on, mate. Pleasure's mine, mate. The pleasure's mine. It's wonderful to see you and to be connecting. And I've seen haven't seen them in forward. I've seen you've been doing these chats, and good on you, mate. It's great effort for you and the boys that you're leading. So it's good to see you, man.
Yeah, no, I always think it's a good way, especially with mainstream media. Most of it's doom and gloom. To try and get out there and probably put some smiles on people's faces. I'm not sure how the lockdown is being phased out where you are, but be that as it may, how have you kept yourself sane and busy during this pandemic?
Yeah, mate. It's we're here in West Wales in a suburb called Hendy, right near Llanelli. We've had 6 weeks now of lockdown, 7 weeks of not being assembled as a team with the Scarlets, and we just have recently, the last couple of days, been announced that we've got another 3 weeks of lockdown to keep this pandemic at bay. So it's probably gone in phases a bit with how we've kept saying. We've got three kids ranging from 14 to 9. So you had these visions of homeschooling and running the cutter, which have been flipped on their head, and the kids are definitely running the house. And look, early on, with respect to the team and our people, our staff and team and fans as well, and the connection. When there wasn't a heck of a lot of real clarity and certainty about when we might be back together, we were going in 2-week increments really, and then we could see, righto, this is at least a six week scenario. So we've kept the connection really strong. I'm not sure. As much as we're very isolated, I think the team's never been so well connected through the means of WhatsApp and Zooms and whatnot. So everyone's out doing their own thing, staying mentally and physically well. That's the key, as opposed to staying ready to play. I think just keeping fit and ready to train when the green light's given. But really, ultimately just accepting the facts of the facts and then seeing, well, what's the opportunity here for us to connect with different people, and also to spend some time as a family that we wouldn't have otherwise had.
I definitely think, obviously, it's unprecedented times. And I think at the beginning phase of lockdown, everyone thought, how are we going to do it in close proximity with our families for an extended period of time? I mean, your normal routine is going to work and coming back. And so I think it has been challenging at time, but I think it's been, a lot of gratitude to spend this time with your family and really connect in a deep and meaningful way, even though at times it can get a bit hairy in the house, I'm sure. But yeah, like I've said in previous conversations with other people, we're all connected by this, which we hope won't happen in our lifetime again, but I suppose stranger things have happened. So we'll see how things unfold.
Well, mate, so well said around gratitude and understanding, where we sit. We grateful to be living in a place that's got a bit of space, and we're not in the middle of a city in an apartment block, and I can only imagine what that could be like for some people's situations. And so just dealing with that and saying, well, let's take the positives that we can out of this, but also being realistic about and not putting themselves under too much pressure. I think in the first couple of weeks, I even got to the point of thinking, actually need to say no to some things, and into every webinar, every personal development opportunity, reading and watching every joke that was flying around WhatsApp, and feeling almost obligated to send back an emoji or a thumbs up or whatever it may be, or forward it on to someone. And then actually thinking, gosh, this is just wearing me down. I'm not having a break. So actually, for a couple of days, put the phone away, and thought, well, I'll have these windows of the day when I'll look at that, and from a personal development opportunity, what are the things that I'm focused on that I want to be doing and developing in, and then targeting what opportunities there might be, rather than just taking up every hour webinar that was on every day and throughout the day, and then thinking, gosh, I need to do my notes and all of this stuff. That actually, let's take the pressure off and think about what's important. And same with the kids.
Yeah.
With their schooling, it's like what they'll remember is how we operated as a family, and how we got on. And there'll be some funny moments when we recount the odd skirmish, but you sort of operate between perfect harmony and Armageddon at different stages.
Yeah.
And that's all good. There's no problem with that. So rather than putting pressure on ourselves to be running a 6-hour schooling day, and let's learn some life skills as well as some school skills, and we're all actually learning together.
And I think also in a big element, probably learning something new about
might have just frozen,
family, I suppose. Which is quite interesting in these times. You probably learn a few more quirks about some of your family members. So I know that if I'm on my phone for too long, or I'm maybe distracted too much, my 2.5-year-old will grab my face and yank it to his face to tell him, listen, it's time to just connect properly and focus on what really matters. So as much as technology has gifted us in a big way, especially in this lockdown, in terms of how you can connect with people. I can't imagine going through this pandemic 60 years ago. You might have to get a carrier pigeon to get some of your messages across to your squad. So, it definitely has its good and bad moments.
We'd find a way. Isn't it great? Kids provide some of the best and most direct feedback for us, don't they? So we should listen to them.
Absolutely. And if I can go back now, maybe pre-apocalyptic COVID-19, and I take you back to when you first got to South Africa. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to have met you in our 2013 campaign, which was really special. It was a forming of a new Super Rugby team. And obviously, people from all parts of the country and the world congregated in Port Elizabeth. And then obviously I saw you again at the Sharks when you spent some time with us. You've obviously been to the Republic. What have you enjoyed about your time being in South Africa? Any fond memories from that time for you?
Oh, mate, massive amount of fond memories. It was a magic time for our family, living in Port Elizabeth. We lived in Summerstrand there, basically 12 months of summer. Yeah. If maybe July was a little bit windier, but it was magic. Great time for us. We met, as always with any adventure like that. To us, it's the people that you remember the most. Relationships, likes of with yourself and a number of other people. When Matt Sexton and I headed over with our families, so James Fleming I was speaking to a couple of days ago. He's now at Michael House, in the Midlands there, and Sean Venter, for example. Sean Venter and was over playing for Ospreys, so caught up with him again. Obviously, we hosted the Kings, so sort of like Dimitri and Timbalani Bowley and Robbie Kempson, Barney. Mate, you see Lindsay Vire lift the World Cup in 2019, you work closely with him back in those days, and just the people and the effort that everyone was prepared to put in to making the Kings get off the ground in 2013. Yeah, I remember very vividly and fondly the first game against the Force, and man, there's 37,000 people in the stadium. You could feel the vibe that it was giving to the community. Easy Whana leading the fan club and the chanting, and he's dressed up ready to take the field. And I've mentioned people, Amy and Impo and Mbuoso, they've remained very close friends. In fact, they're currently living in our house in Christchurch. Okay. And so, and we managed to win that game against the Force, and Sergio Peterson sort of introduced himself to the world stage, and mate, just so many people stories. It was magnificent. We were in a team. I remember also thinking, it'd be lovely to start each day by saying hello and good morning in the language of one of the different language of the people that are represented. And when we went round language and dialect, I think there were 9 different languages or dialects to cover. We had obviously all the different African representatives, the Afrikaans, the English, we had French and Argentinian, and it was magic to get to understand and learn some different languages, but at the same time we couldn't actually do it in a week. So that was pretty cool. One stage there as well, went to Amy and Mbuoso took us to the Ubuntu Education Fund in a township called Zwede, just out of PE, and that was an organisation set up to assist people affected by either directly or indirectly through their family with HIV, and we took a cooking class. I think we and the kids, might have been something like rice bubble cake. We might have cooked with the class, and just those sorts of cultural opportunities for our family to get into is amazing, and they stick with you. And it is by virtue of you asking. The rugby part that was a massive thing was how it was my first career job, and having come from as a career job as a coach, and having developed through different path of New Zealand coaching the coaches, etc., and seeing different examples of that, actually experiencing a really different way to look at the game. It really surprised me how the game can be looked at so differently. So that was really valuable experience, and it doesn't make one perspective right or wrong. It means that you take the best parts of everything and adapt it to the group that you're coaching along the way, and in your own style, and you might not know more, but you're starting to ask different questions and build your knowledge base. It's hugely valuable.
Yeah, I think the one thing that sticks out for me is just that squad. There was such a huge amount of work that was put in. I mean, I've done countless of pre-season fitness and prep work, and I mean, it just seemed like the energy was different. Maybe it was because everyone felt that excitement of being part of something very new, the first ever Super Rugby team to come out of Port Elizabeth. So I just remember that everyone came to work to grind, and you made a lot of good friendships that have lasted, like you said, for many years after that. Regardless of how it ended, which was also quite tight. losing that
Yeah.
crunch game to the Lions. But yeah, it really is. I look back at it as a joyful part of my memory. Obviously, meeting a lot of good people, and like you say, it's all relational. That's what you want, developing friendships with people. So for me, the Kings will always stick out for that very reason, and always have a soft spot for them. And I always hope they'll do well, especially now with them doing Pro 14. So I think rugby has to live in Port Elizabeth. There's no doubt about that. A huge amount of talent comes from that region. So look, even if we had a minute part to play in the process, it's good to see there's still rugby that's highlighted on the world stage.
Absolutely, mate. And the story is not an easy one to keep going, is it? You know, it's had all sorts of different challenges, but you're right. Somehow it has to remain alive, and even like the Kings playing in the Pro 14 and the Cheetahs as well. As much as the time zone's the same, it's still an 11-hour flight. You're still on tour quite a bit. It's even a performance challenge above and beyond whatever you can produce at home. It's just even that makes it challenging, which either becomes exciting or a burden depending on which way you look at it. And I know that under the current group, Robbie Kempson, he's a very, very smart operator, and there'll be some players definitely being improved under his leadership.
Absolutely. And then obviously moving across to your three-peat. I don't know if the Americans like to call it a three-peat. Somebody used that phrase. Your time with the Crusaders, your tenure with the Crusaders. How was that for you in terms of, obviously you got the silverware, but obviously no one gets an insight into all the planning that takes towards getting to the podium. How was it for you with that group that made them that much more special in terms of how they achieved what they achieved?
And I'm not sure if we've frozen or if this is, there we go, we're back. Look, incredibly special. And again, the things think about are the relationships and the amount of growth that you see in people that you're working with, and also in yourself along the way, because it becomes really circular. For me in the game, for family and friends to inspire, and for goosebump moments, it's a given that we love winning, but the winning doesn't come without winning the moments. So the amount of work and focus of being present and being the best you can be in this meeting or in this training, or let's go and catch up and have a cup of coffee, or we're having time out and a bit of fun, so we're going to really concentrate on that. And winning those moments, I think you see in a side and a squad like that wants to perform and has the ability to do so, and then fulfills that promise. Some awesome times. I started at Crusaders under Todd Blackadder's leadership, and then more recently was Scott Robertson, and both lead in their own different ways, and you pick up different things from them, and energy and whatnot. And I think that's the power of a club like the Crusaders, is the legacy is really strong throughout, that you feel that obligation to the legacy, and that you look, mate, we're custodians in whatever role we're doing, aren't we? We're custodians in it for that moment. There's plenty of people who have come before us, and there'll be plenty that have gone, that will come after. And if we can add a bit to it, then and enjoy the ride, then we're doing well, and then someone else will come and add a bit more. So I just see, you're right. There's a huge amount of work, and every side generally works really hard. the lot really good accountability within the group. That can be led at times by the management and coaches, or indeed by the players themselves. They're holding each other accountable and themselves accountable, and us accountable to making sure we're prepared. And I think that's probably the really clear thing, is that we can control the preparation to a large extent. The performance is the time for the boys to go on stage and play freely and with confidence that what there's a good plan, but whatever does come up, if that's different to the plan, then they've got the ability to make the decisions and execute whatever's required at that time. And so we saw boys have their debuts, and then next thing, in a couple of years' time, they're debuting for the All Blacks, and it's just goosebump moments and spine tingling. You love seeing that. So heaps of wonderful memories of great times and great people.
I suppose it's that delicate balance, because like you said, there's only so much you can do, but they have to execute on Saturdays. So I think it's been that shift in maybe coaching philosophies over the years, where you were told this is what you're supposed to do, and if you don't execute and you make mistakes, then come Monday you're going to be abused or be in a lot of trouble. So I think you have to give the power to the players in terms of that leadership. And it's nice for players to find a voice within the team, especially the shy ones or the introverted ones, giving them a platform to share, And we know that everyone's got the ability to add something to someone else's growth. So you can learn from different people every day. Doesn't matter if it's a rugby player or the guy cleaning up the change room. There are little moments out there. If you look deep enough, I think everyone's got a gift. So finding that balance to allow the players to be accountable and to also lead is hugely important, because obviously Saturdays, they've got to run with it. They've got to control the moments in the game. They've got to stay calm. They've got to swing the momentum back in their favor when stuff goes wrong.
Mate, 100%, and it's I wouldn't disagree with anything you've said. I totally agree. There's probably a bit in that I think we have to lead and coach depending on the group and also the situation. So the group might be, or the individuals within it might be experts in one thing and then novices in another. So how we're coaching and leading the people at different stages needs to be flexible and picking the right style or mode, I suppose, to win that moment. But as we develop that along, then we need to adapt with that as well, because the group develops. So being able to, that's probably the art of it, and trying to get that right as much as possible, and seeking feedback and whatnot, because the game itself for me is vision, decision making, skill execution. So we're always coaching in one of those three forms. So did we see it? What did we decide? And did we execute the skill? So sometimes we saw it, we made the right decision, but didn't execute the skill. Okay, well, let's go and work on that skill. That'll give us a training and encourage the players to force the envelope around that. If we didn't see it, so we've got a ruck on our 22, 80 metres out, and there's no one on the left and 5 people on the right, but we've got 3 on the left. Well, one would hope that we attack the left-hand side. Now, if we're attacking the right, what do we see?
Yeah.
So then, as opposed to giving the players a bollocking for not having taken the left, when we haven't actually even given any consideration to what perspective they saw and whatnot. So, mate, for me, the best environments are help out, not catch out. And if we make that safe for people to be able to say, oh, look, I'm not sure, or I got that wrong, or I can be better, is even better than saying I got that wrong. We can do that better. then that's an environment of growth. And then the players will have that confidence to take into the performance. There's a nice clip actually of a musician, Patti Scialfa, who's Bruce Springsteen's wife. And in this interview, she talks about, and she plays on in the E Street Band. She plays guitar and a bit of vocals, and she does music in her own right as well. And in this interview about being the wife of one of the biggest rock stars of all time, and a mother and an artist in her own right, she's talking about one night she's on stage and she had the kids sorted with a babysitter and forgot to tell the babysitter about the 4:00 piano lesson for the children. And she's thinking this while there's 80,000 people out there watching. And then she's thought, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be thinking, I should be just playing. Yeah. And that's where I think, that's our players on stage on us, is when the whistle goes, just play, boys. You'll see what you need to see, and then we'll chat, and we're on. You're prepared. Have a go.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I always find it tough to think you've won the tournament, you won the Super Rugby tournament. To get the players to reset and go, let's go again. You've achieved your pinnacle. Let's go again. Let's try and lift our standards even higher. Does the theme change from year to year in terms of what you set the boys, especially the Crusaders squad? Is it a different theme, or do you try and have one underlying thing where you kind of build on the first championship going on to the next?
Yeah. A little bit of both. So that stems largely from the leadership of the head coach. So in our situation is Razor, and then people feeding into that to give it life. So when I say a bit of both, I don't think the values of an organisation that is set change. I think how we agree to operate and we join the club rather than the club joining us. So you understand what the values are, and not just what the values are, but actually what the behaviours are of that show that. So how does team first look every day? What does that look like in a meeting, on the training field? What about when you're outside of the fence and you're on your own time? What does that look like? And all those things. So giving the values really clear behaviours, and so because loyalty to you and loyalty to me might mean something different, but so getting that defined, really important. So I don't think the values change, but certainly a theme and to help give the season life will be relevant to that year's group.
Yeah.
And they'll interlock. There's no doubt about that. But out of that, that I think that's where we can drive a lot of the energy.
Yeah. And obviously you touched on Razor, must obviously being having a team creatively that kind of gets each other is quite hard. No coaching staff is all alike, so I suppose it's always new when you're coming into an environment. And you've been in different franchises, coming into different coaching environments, different cultures, and trying to plot a course. Has there been any mentors for you that you've kind of molded your coaching philosophy on? Any coaches that have helped you along the way?
Oh, mate, many, so many, and I think
need a separate Zoom interview for that.
Some years, mate. Well, just so grateful to have had introductions, which then turn into relationships or whatever, to some many outstanding people who are willing to give their time, and it's not just coaches, it's players as well. Like yourself, and you're really clear on what you're about and what's really important to you, and that feeds off. So that you receive that sort of mentoring formally or informally all the time. Some of the mentoring is watching and thinking, well, that might work for that person, but that's not me. So I think we get to get clearer and clearer on what we're about as we're getting through things, and then that allows real authenticity, and then that's engaging. Look, early on, I had as a club coach, the people I coached with were superb, and also there's a coach educator guy called Brent Frew, who's still operating in Christchurch, but the way he educated a number of coaches, he'd be very proud. He can be very proud of that, and he's still a bloke that'll bounce ideas off and pick up the phone and have a yarn with. And he had a massive ability to just drop a little question in that may even have irritated initially, and you'll want to bite back, and sometimes did, and then go away and think about it, and about a week later be ringing him up and going, that question you asked, had to think about it, and then you'd be rolling. So really grateful for that. And then guys along the way, like Steve Hansen was my first senior coach, and with his time, and you get your, like I said, Todd Blackadder, guys you work with more recently. It just continues on. Ian Foster was outstanding with his time when he was coaching the Crusaders, and he's coaching the All Blacks, and we had similar roles in the two sides. So it's great to be able to bounce ideas off. And I think what happens with mentors is you find different people, and it's just ends up, what starts out as basically a student-teacher scenario can become a friendship. And you end up having different people to go to for different types of issues, whether it's technical, tactical, relationship. I had a guy called Ted Felberger in Christchurch who, when I was there, used to catch up with every 6 to 8 weeks on personal leadership and well-being and all those sorts of things, and it's just magnificent. You start thinking about all these things when you ask the question, and these names keep popping back.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's exciting. I think obviously the more you think you aren't the finished product, the more you're able to draw from different resources. And it's really lovely as you obviously get older and you experience new things in different environments. So maybe to touch briefly, obviously there's a lot to be excited in your own personal capacity with coaching, joining the All Blacks. I know it's still early days in terms of the future and what you guys have in place, where you see the side going, etc. But maybe from a broad point of view, what excites you about this next chapter, especially for the All Blacks and for the New Zealand people in general?
Well, I think before the pandemic, what's really exciting is joining an outstanding sporting side and organisation that doesn't hold the World Cup at the moment and isn't ranked number one and wants to be back there. So lovely challenge and some change, and you're working with tremendous people to be part of that challenge, representing the country. As you know, mate, it's just it's incredible, and pinching myself that even in that conversation, let alone heading back to like I said earlier, to be custodian of the role for the now. Yeah. And I certainly didn't get to the level of being a viable selection option for the All Blacks as a player.
Yeah.
Wasn't through not being available. It was definitely available, but just never got the phone call. And, quite rightly too. I think they had a good point.
Yeah.
So that opportunity is I'm hugely proud and humbled by. But now with the coronavirus scenario, it's just that you can see how important sport is to the culture and fabric of our society, and what it drives commercially and corporately in terms of people's or income and ability to earn a living. So that excites me that we can be part of that once we can get some clarity on what that might look like. Mate, when I think about pulling up in the bus to a game versus South Africa, Australia, England, Wales, oh my goodness, it's so what
goosebumps.
What's happening here? So someone wake me up. So I know it's going to be the pressure's going to be on, and that's a privilege of the team and the environment, and it should be. And I also know that we'll be going into bat with some outstanding people, players and staff who will have each other's backs and make each other better. So it is an exciting time, and mate, we're also very, very happy here at Scarlets and loving the role and the people in the club, and it was I was really grateful as well that with the integrity and the empathy, the way that it was handled by my employers and the players and staff, and also the fans. It's not an easy place to say hooray to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, sport is a massive unifier, and it's been proven countless times in South Africa. If I think back at the '95 World Cup, so I think sport's going to be hugely important post coronavirus and this COVID pandemic. It just gets people motivated and shows them the bigger picture, some entertainment, something to look forward to. And like you said, it's a absolute honor to be on the national stage and to be an All Black coach, I'm sure. So you hold that responsibility with a lot of joy, like only you can. I think it would be a lot of stress for me if I was in your shoes. But I think everyone lies in wait to see what's next for the All Blacks, because you guys have been the absolute gold standard for so many years. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of years in terms of where rugby goes and how these battles ensue. So I look forward to looking at the rugby landscape next year, especially the international scene. Australia obviously have a new coach as well. So yeah, it's a unique time in rugby in terms of new fresh starts for many different nations.
Yeah, mate, it's exciting, and I think that's where we really need to keep open-minded, and the relationships need to be that have been built. This is when they'll come really to fruition. The immediate future, and then the next couple of years can look like, because it's a tough time at the moment, but the opportunities are there, and to come out the other side with in due course.
Yeah, absolutely. Just maybe in closing, obviously before you joined us in 2013 at the Kings, you went through the whole Christchurch earthquake, and obviously you have a unique story I thought might be good for people to listen to. Obviously very scary to recount what happened, but for me, I think the sense of community through that experience is what I find obviously very profound. Can you maybe share that story? Obviously, you lived through that 2011 Christchurch earthquake.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think all these experiences help build what we're about, aren't they? And resilience and what pressure is, and how you think, optimistic thinking, and all those sorts of things. So, and I think we're seeing some of the similar things now with communities pulling together with COVID-19. So 2011, I can remember sitting at I was a lawyer then. I was sitting at my desk 16 floors up in the middle of town, and 12:51. I know exactly what I was working on, and just thinking, what am I going to do for lunch? Go for a run and have a feed, or go to the gym, or none of the above. And 12:51, it just all hell breaks loose, and it's just like an explosion, and this violent earthquake is on us for these 23 seconds. And straight under the desk, and then you could hear what was going on around. So stuff was flying and computers gone off the table, and it was a really violent shake, very powerful. And then we worked out that it stopped, and so I was making sure people were all right, and to get around the floor and send some off down the stairs to get out. And then there was 20 of us left, and as we went to go down the stairs, we realised that actually part of the stairwells had collapsed, so we couldn't get down that way. So we came back up and just sat tight. You could see that the building was safe, and that it wasn't on fire or anything like that, and it was upright, and it's done its job to keep us safe. So people knew where we were, just wait out. And then you start to think about the family, and we lived in a suburb called Littleton, which is the harbour, and then heard that that's where the earthquake was centred. So I thought, righto, well, what's going to be happening there? And so we had the 3 kids then. The oldest was 14 now, so nearly 14. So she's nearly 4. And she was down at kindy in the valley. My wife was up at home with the 6-month-old, and the other one was over the other side of the harbour at grandparents' place in an old batch on the side of the hill. But in the end, everyone was all right, and you couldn't make phone calls, so you had to text messages, and but then they were getting in different orders, so conversations were getting mixed up, and thinking, why didn't you answer that question? Is something wrong and whatnot? But anyway, basically, you have to go to, well, what can we control? So we dealt with the 20 people that we were with, and well, okay, it'll be okay, we'll deal with that stuff. But of course, everyone's got a different reality, so different experiences there. And ultimately, we managed to be rescued out of there. There were 2 stairwells servicing the building, and you could the emergency services worked out a way to get us out. So that was about 3 hours later, and then then it took ages to get. I ended up going to my parents' house, so it was only 4 kilometres out of the centre of the city, which is 4 or 5 k's, and ended up it probably took another 2 hours. It was just mayhem, and but what we found is then the family got back together and whatnot. And the thing with earthquakes is that potentially a little bit like Corona is that if a fire goes through a place, that's drastic and tragic. Once it's out, it's out. And obviously we have forest fires and that, which is shocking and can rekindle. But with the earthquake, there kept being little aftershocks, well, not so much little. There was some significant aftershocks and subsequent earthquakes. So it's always on you. So what we learned is turn the TV off. Didn't need to keep seeing the same news story over and over and over again. It wasn't going to be great news for a while, and you knew what you were in. Our house was we never lived in that house again. That was ultimately pulled down, and because it was ruined, and the building, the business building that we're in, Clarendon Tower in the middle of town, was demolished as well, so it was never occupied again either. But much as that, you've got insurance and you can work through that from a personal side, and we there were no casualties and whatnot amongst our immediate family and friends, so really grateful and lucky for that. So in the days that followed, you just start to work out, well, what do we need to do now? And that's where communities pulled together, and you had people meeting their neighbours who didn't actually know each other, helping out, just turning up with a wheelbarrow and a shovel for the liquefaction that had worked its way in, or turning up with cooking or whatever the case may be, or just saying, how are you?
Yeah.
And I think our firm of law firm, approximately 100 people, ended up having operating in about 9 different sites around the city, because not everywhere was damaged, but we had competitors offering you office space, professional colleagues like accountants offering you space. You went from a beautiful, probably embarrassingly palatial type office setup to being almost side by side, and then when we found some other an actual office to occupy, we
sorry.
When we all good. When we had found different premises to occupy, maybe they didn't have it had running water, but it didn't have a drain, and all these things you'd never be allowed to occupy, but because it was an emergency scenario, you could. So
yeah,
you'd be talking to a client about some work, and then next minute you're picking up the bucket from the kitchen sink to go and to go and put down the drain, and it's hugely the humbling of the situation, but also being really grateful again for what we did have, and realizing that, gosh, we can all sit around here and have this sort of dim light and one phone between us, and we can function. And there's a cafe over there, and they've got a toilet, and everyone worked its way out. So it was there's a special time that the relationships were the key, and that's where people really bound together, and for some lovely stories that came out of no doubt a tragic situation.
Yeah, and I suppose you never know when these major catastrophes are going to happen. So like you said, you have to be grateful for the small things, and for your relationships with people, and like you said, just having a roof over your head, and always reminding yourself that there's probably someone in a worse off position than you. So I can only imagine what that did for the community. And sometimes the universe sends these messages to us, sometimes in a grand way, so that we can reassess where we are in our lives, and just ground us a little bit. So look, I think the rugby community, the world community, bound together, especially in support of what happened, especially during Christchurch. And it's amazing to see how people transformed and how they changed it into a positive going forward.
Well, that's right. And you saw the sport come together, and the difference, of course, it wasn't just, it was one city. Obviously had different ramifications that went further than that, but part of one city was damaged. So we got the support that the rest of New Zealand gave to Christchurch. The next game, Crusaders were playing, the season was on, and they were preparing to play the Hurricanes, and straight away that became and it was to be in Wellington, but straight away there was agreed that game would not happen and the points would be shared. there's no argument about that. It was just, that's the right thing to do.
Mm.
And then obviously the Crusaders never played a game in Christchurch again that season.
Yeah.
And the stadium that Crusaders now play in was built once things was built in so necessity being the mother of invention, and in that respect, you can see how things can get done when they have to be. So the support from and then what rugby did provide for the people through that, and the Crusaders that year went all the way to the final against the Reds, and it was just one step too far, and the Reds were deserved winners of that final. But you're probably talking about being 15 minutes away from a movie being made about the season.
Absolutely.
So but it was but the amount of spirit and support that gave people and something to believe in shows where it sits. And I think that tells you that our game is all about people first. So before you're a player or a coach, you're a person. So got to look after each other.
Absolutely. And maybe lastly, if you could give any advice to young sportsmen, not necessarily pursuing a career in rugby, what are some of the things they need in terms of to give them the best possible chance of making a career out of a sport, if that's the path they choose? Because in this day and age, I think every kid sees the lights and sees the glitz and glamour of the big stage, but they don't necessarily understand how many different moving parts go into getting to the place or the destination.
Mate, and so they should. Yeah. So they should see the opportunity, and well, that's outstanding. I think back yourself, do what you're doing because you enjoy it, and find the way to maintain that enjoyment. If it becomes a chore, then something's not quite right. I think that also, surround yourself with good people and watch how people operate that are dominating in that chosen field. Because if you can tap into a little bit about them, you'll soon realise that what we see is a snapshot of a massive amount of hard work that any top performer puts in. For a rugby perspective, I think there's 10,080 minutes in a week, and we get to be on stage for 80 minutes, but the ball's only in play for 36, so it keeps coming down, and we might only have that for half the time. So all of a sudden, this brilliant attacking player has got a team window of 18 minutes a week out of 10,080 to show their thing. So the other 10,000 minutes matter. So so what you're doing in those, particularly when people aren't watching, is pretty important. And I think as much as this shouldn't burden people, it's okay to fail, and it's okay to get a knockback, because that'll build up your resilience and ability to be robust. So be ready for the bumps. You don't have to anticipate them or necessarily expect them, but be ready, because they will come.
Yeah, I think you summed it up absolutely as eloquent as you usually do. So yeah, just maybe in closing, just want to thank you for your time. I'm obviously very excited, and I wish you all the best for your new exciting adventure. And I really hope your family stays safe, and that the next couple of months there'll be a lot of positivity to go around, especially around the world, because we need this in these trying times. But yeah, mate, thank you so much for your time and for your mentorship and your friendship, and I obviously wish you everything of the best.
Oh, mate, it's very kind. It's absolute pleasure. Great catching up, and likewise, hope you and the family are all well. And mate, your school's very lucky to have you on board. So they'll be making the most of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Chat soon. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Tot ziens.